What's up everyone, it's Marco Hanna from PhoneDog.com, and the LG G3 has been one fantastic device here at PhoneDog.com. It's been stealing our show, essentially. I mean, it has a 2K display, it looks fantastic, and think about it, everyone wants an LG G3. Even you want an LG G3, but that's not the only 2K smartphone on the market. There is this guy, which is the OPPO Find 7. Essentially, spec for spec, exactly the same as the LG G3, other than it's just not physically as pretty as the LG G3. It's pretty cumbersome, it's pretty big and large, but it's built like a tank, and it has essentially the same 2K panel on the inside. So enough of me talking, let's get into the full review of the OPPO Find 7. The OPPO Find 7, if you don't know, has been a device talked about ever since CES earlier this year. 2K was the big topic, and they announced it a few months after alongside a 1080p variant called the OPPO Find 7a, which we reviewed here at PhoneDog.com a couple months back. So the OPPO Find 7 is their flagship, with a display measuring it at 5.5 inches with a resolution of 2560 by 1440. This means 534 pixels per inch, which is about the same as the new LG G3. Specs were also generally improved on the Find 7 with a 2.5 GHz quad-core Snapdragon 801 chip, 3 GB of RAM, and the Adreno 330 GPU. And you can also find a larger 3000 mAh battery to power those extra pixels. But other than that, software remains the same with Android 4.3 Jelly Bean, not KitKat with Color OS. The design is also exactly the same metal construction around the sides of a plastic back. Build quality wise though, it's heftier than the LG G3, but it also weighs considerably more and it's physically larger thanks to the larger bezels around the device. So the big talk is obviously about the display. While it's essentially the same IPS panel found on the LG G3, the color balance is a bit more gray than the LG G3, maybe even a bit dimmer than the G3, but it's hard to tell to the naked eye. But the quality of the panel is still top notch. Viewing angles are fantastic, and even with slightly off whites, the color accuracy is pretty good. Pretty comparable to the LG G3 and the HTC One M8. Now next is going to be about the size. Now while it has a 5.5 inch display, the same as the LG G3, the bezels are huge. Compared to the G3, and the G3 looks absolute miniature compared to the Find 7. Now it may be too big for people with smaller hands, and there is no added functionality like front-facing speakers found on the HTC One M8. Now onto the software. This is pretty identical to the OPPO Find 7a with Color OS. It's a skin built on Android 4.3 Jelly Bean, which includes its own theme marketplace. My favorite, and has been for a long time, is the Jelly Bean theme, which makes it feel more like a stock Android device. But that theme is only skin deep. All the settings and custom pre-installed applications are all Color OS, which may be unattractive to people who are used to stock Android. This phone is eligible for CyanogenMod 11S, which is now compatible with 2K displays, which could be the best option for the OPPO Find 7, but that would really make it a 2K 1+1. So if you leave it stock, it's really not ideal. But if you do leave it stock, Color OS seems to be really friendly with the hardware. Performance-wise, it's pretty quick. The software seems fluid, and going through simple tasks like browsing the web and multitasking are all really simple. Now onto the cameras. Let's start with the front-facing camera for your selfie people. Unlike most phones, you'll find a 5 megapixel front-facing camera, much more resolution than your 2 megapixel or 720p front-facing camera on most flagships. The quality is actually pretty good, the colors are pretty balanced, but it doesn't like to expose properly, so you might want to be careful in differentiating light situations. Now the rear camera is a 13 megapixel sensor that's capable of recording UHD video at 30 frames per second. The photos are actually pretty nice, and for the most part exposes really well. The video is also great quality. Still not as good as the Samsung Galaxy S5 UHD video, but it's much better than the LG G3, even with that OIS. Now on to the last thing, which is battery life. While a 3000 mAh battery sounds fantastic, this phone seems to run through juice much quicker than I expected. Maybe about 5 hours of on-screen time, and that's because I've had to push up the brightness more than usual to get proper brightness. But standby time is where it really shocks me. Say if you leave this phone 100% charged off the charger overnight, you could lose a good 20 or 30% of juice the next morning. Now that's because of a continuous refreshing of OPPO's widgets, checking for updates, and other miscellaneous tasks that your phone does while on a Wi-Fi network. Just weird when phones like the LG G3 and even the OnePlus One, a virtual copy of the Find 7, does not have the same problem. Now I'm sure this is all about the software, and if you switch to CyanogenMod 11S, I'm sure that problem would be fixed. So while the Find 7 is not the only 2K phone around, it's still a super solid device. I'm really happy with the build quality here. It's actually much better than the LG G3, just a very solid feeling phone in the hand. I don't mind the heft of this device, but I do mind the bezels and the size. I wish there was the best of both worlds of combining the LG G3 size and the build quality from this OPPO Find 7, but that does not exist. And don't think this phone is cheaper either. It will cost you a pretty penny, just about the same as your LG G3 off contract when it hits our shores in a few days. But you have to remember the software is where it's crippled. Not to a point where it's irrelevant, but it is becoming outdated and very clunky compared to phones like the G3. So thanks for watching my full review of the OPPO Find 7. Make sure to leave a comment below if you want to tell me something directly. Send it to my Twitter to @PhoneDog_Marco, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.